Hey guys, welcome to Herding Little Cows to the Glory of God. I'm Sarah and this is Mark, if you haven't been here before. And we are parents to 8 kids and we are Christians and we try to do everything we can to glorify God. And we fail in that so often, but we make these videos as trying to encourage the body of Christ at large.
Maybe you struggle in some of the same ways we do. Maybe you find yourself failing like we do sometimes and want to do better and strive to do better. And maybe you even think you're crazy because, well, am I taking this too far? Am I really doing the right thing? We live in a culture that we second guess ourselves when we're probably doing the right thing, but oftentimes we don't second guess ourselves when we're doing the wrong thing. Like, we live in a culture that is very opposed to thinking biblically. And I think even in Christian circles, we can find ourselves maybe laughing at jokes that shouldn't be laughed at or shouldn't even be told, or participating in activities that we feel okay at the moment, but maybe afterwards we feel convicted about. And then how do we deal with those things? And how do we deal with them in ourselves, first of all, when we see that we have fallen into sin? Do we confess our sin, knowing that God is faithful and just to forgive us? Do we confront sin? Like, for us as a married couple, we probably sin against each other more often than we sin against anybody else because we're together all the time. Just being harsh with one another, maybe something that you wouldn't even classify as necessarily sinful, but knowing our own hearts and our own attitudes when we're honest, those things are oftentimes sinful as well. So this is probably the most sober video we've done in a while, because we don't want to make videos like this, but we feel they're necessary because we know other families are struggling with the same things. So this is one of those open and honest, here we are trying to honor God with our attitudes and our actions and our beliefs and everything we do. Hang on just a second, I'll pause it.
Okay, so we're back. The baby really wanted to be in the other room. So we were having this conversation, and when we mention church in this video, we are talking about the church at large, and we are not...
Because we've visited very many churches over the years and seen many of the same problems amongst different people.
And we have many Christian friends outside of, like, in our church, outside of our church,
right.
All over the country. And none of these are... Specifically, we've seen this like with one friend, and I'm trying to call someone out or anything. It's something that we've seen is really easy to just get wrapped up in when people are talking about it. And stuff.
Right, we're just trying to assess ourselves.
Right.
And so a quandary came up recently, and we were like, I don't know, what would we do about that? How did we handle it properly? Did we handle it poorly? Were we too quick to speak? Were we too slow to speak? And
one, when you're with other Christians, first, do we correct ourselves if we say something that we shouldn't have said? Maybe we tell a joke that is not appropriate. Like, I feel it is very wrong to joke about marriage issues or your children being problems, like acting like they're a burden.
My least favorite category of jokes is mother-in-law jokes. I have a wonderful mother-in-law. She has a pretty decent mother-in-law too. So maybe we're more sensitive because we love our moms and we love each other's moms, and we honor them for who they are and what they've done for us. They spent a lot of years raising us, taking care of us, teaching us. Did they do that perfectly? No. Do we do that perfectly? No. But I don't think it's appropriate to mock the institution of marriage.
Right.
I don't think it's appropriate to talk about the old ball and chain, or my wife let me do this thing, or I have to ask the boss permission. I don't think it's appropriate to talk about your mother-in-law or jokes about ending her life or throwing her out of a plane. I mean, I've heard some horrific things. And so when you hear someone talk about actually killing someone, you're like, oh, that's terrible. But what about when they just mock the institution, or when they are teaching children to say, oh, those mother-in-law jokes are funny, or that marriage, that ball and chain joke is funny. Just don't say it in front of your mother. And then we teach them, there's kind of this set of conditions where we tell the truth and we're loving and gracious and kind when people are around, but when they're not, around, maybe we could talk behind their backs, or maybe we could say to a child, I know your parents told you not to jump on the bed, but they're not here, so it'll be our little secret. Anytime someone comes to my child, now this hasn't happened recently, so I feel free to open this up, but to say, when someone says to my child, I know your dad said you can't have this, but it'll be our little secret, that person is not only usurping my authority as a parent, they're teaching my child how to sin. They're saying to my child, you don't have to regard certain authorities that God has ordained in your life, and you can do what you like as long as they're not looking. Oh, yes, hey dad, the speed limit's 45. Well, I'm doing 53 because a cop won't really pull you over, or we're doing 70. And, well, it's okay because we're in a hurry. Well, there's no legal stipulation that allows you to break the speed limit just because you're in a hurry. Now, if you're in a life or death emergency and you're breaking the speed limit and a cop pulls you over, you're like, we're going to the hospital, life or death emergency, and you explain to your children, this is not how we do things, but because of this life-threatening emergency, there are exceptions in the law that allow for these sorts of things, or whatever the situation is. But we've seen it in so many different things. Well, it's okay, don't tell your mom and dad I gave you this cookie, or what happens at grandma and grandpa's stays at grandma and grandpa's. Mm-hmm. What happens in our home, if we have our grandchildren here, is going to be exactly what their parents determined for them to have as rules, because they are the parents. We're grandparents. We are not the children, the parents that have been given obligation and duty and responsibility and authority by God to usurp our grandson justice. I can't just say to him, hey, jump on the bed when mom and dad aren't looking because you're at grandma and grandpa's house. That would be inappropriate.
Right. And so I think as parents, we need to be very careful what we try to, what's it called? When you're trying to make it sound like it's an okay thing.
Excuse,
justify sin.
There you go.
That's the word I was looking for. It's a Sunday afternoon. I'm tired. But we have to be very careful of what we justify when it could be a sinful behavior. So, let's say the life or death situation. Our kids ride in the car seats that are determined by our state, and I know every state is different, so I don't want to give numbers on those. But for our state, our children are supposed to be in our state. This is for everyone else. Our state. Kids are supposed to be rear facing till 2. They need to be in a rear 5-point harness until 55 pounds, and they need to be in a booster seat until 8.
Right.
That's the rules.
There's
some
some poundage, 50 pounds, 80 pounds, that kind of thing too. There's some of those things as well.
For our family, it has worked out to be the ages, not the whatever. But we go by those laws.
Because that is the governing authorities that God has placed over us in our lives. If we were in Tennessee or Florida, we would abide by their laws as well. And there are some reciprocal state laws where they say, oh, in Maine, you have to wear the seatbelt. You cross through to New Hampshire where they don't have that. You still need to, we're not talking about those kind of things. We're talking about the day-to-day.
Day-to-day, we're going to the grocery store today. You're going to be in your car seat because that's what's required.
Even if I don't agree with it.
Yeah. But in this life or death situation, if I got the kids in the car, my kids, if I was everyone get in and just put on a seatbelt, my kids would be like, but I'm supposed to have my car seat. And I'd be like, no, your brother, let's say Josiah, is having a seizure. We need to get him to the hospital now. And whoever has the car that has the car seats in it, we're going to get someone to safety.
Right.
But our kids would be like, this isn't what we normally do.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and not giving ourselves exemptions, I guess, is but we're in a hurry. Well, that's not the same as life or death emergency. Even police officers, if they're in a hurry to get somewhere, are not allowed to break the speed limit. They're given certain exemptions where if it's a life or death emergency, then they're allowed to do X amount. I don't know those laws, those stipulations, because I'm not a police officer. I know they don't apply to me. I don't have a driver's license. I haven't had a driver's license in 8 years because of my medical condition. I still know how to drive, and I'm still legally allowed to drive my vehicle on my property because it's our property, and we can do that. But I can't get it on the road. So I go driving around on the road just because I say, well, I'm feeling pretty good today. Or, well, we all know that I've been driving for a lot more years than you have, or any of those sorts of things. That's not an exemption the law is going to give you. A cop's not going to be like, well, yeah, you seem to know how to drive. No, I'm breaking the law, and I'm knowingly breaking the law. And when I knowingly break the law in front of my children, I'm teaching my children to break the law.
Or I'm teaching them that sin does not have consequences necessarily.
As long as no one catches you. So we teach them to sin when they're not being watched.
Right. Which is, as a parent, is actually the opposite of what we should be doing. If I want my children to honor God with their attitudes and actions, and I want them to obey me in their attitudes and actions, then I shouldn't teach them ways that they can creatively disobey me at certain circumstances, and then be mad at them when they disobey me. Because I taught them to. I've said, it's okay to disobey me because I wasn't looking.
Right. And the laws that we're talking about are laws that are not something that go against God, because there is that you obey the government as long as they're not asking you to do something God told you to do.
But the government isn't causing anyone to sin by mandating seatbelts.
Right. Right.
I mean, you can argue with your legislator or maybe something like that about hoping to change the law, but you don't get to just disobey the law because you don't like the law.
Right.
Any more than our children should disobey us just because they did. I told them to go to bed and they're like, I don't want to go to bed, so I don't have to.
So one way that you can help in your family to follow the law is to explain the laws to your kids. Yeah. Because if you explain to your kid that the speed limit is 55 and that means that your car should not go faster than 55, when your kids learn to read a speedometer, they're going to tell you, Mom, you're going faster than 55.
And if the next thing out of your mouth is, well, it's different because, then you're teaching them to sin. You really are.
But like the other day, I was driving home with Josiah from an appointment, and I wanted to tell Mark something. I was asking.
I wasn't in the car.
He wasn't in the car. I wanted to tell him to do something at home so that it made it easier when we got home.
Yeah.
So I told Josiah, we need to pull over because in the state of Maine, I cannot use my phone. I don't remember.
The state of Maine is a hands-free place. So in the state of Maine, you are not allowed to drive when you have a phone in your hand at all.
So like you're
not allowed to.
You can talk like in the state of Maine.
Hands-free thing.
You can do the hands-free like I call Virginia.
But that whole thing where you're like talking to the phone like this, but you're not looking at it, you're not allowed to do that either. Yeah. And you're not allowed to I'm looking at my maps, I'm just trying to figure out where I'm going.
Right.
You may have it placed in a cradle that is hands-free. That means you can't have it in your hand.
You can't touch it.
That's the law.
So I pulled over and told Josiah, I need to pull over because I want to tell Daddy something and I'm not allowed to have the phone in my hand while I'm driving. So now Josiah knows if Mommy picks up the phone while I'm driving, I'm doing something wrong and he should call me out on it because it is okay for our kids to point out where we are sinning in our lives. And I know there's parents that don't want to hear that, but our children help to hold us accountable. Like God has given us our children as a blessing. And part of that blessing is that we are always teaching our children through our words, but also through our actions.
Yeah, have you ever responded in some sort of way and say some phrase that you're like, don't repeat that? They shouldn't repeat it. You probably shouldn't say it. Because when we say it in front of them, we're teaching them to repeat it. Like we teach them to say mama or dada or teach them anything else by showing it to them and teaching them how to do it. Are we ingraining in them the questioning of authority, not a proper biblical questioning of authority where has God ordained this, but when we know what the authority is and we're just wanting to do something that we know is not acceptable, but we want to do it anyway.
And why is 55 miles per hour not fast enough? Like, why do we feel like we need to go faster than that? Because maybe we're just too busy in our lives and we need to slow down. Just saying.
While we're at it, that excuse that I've heard from hundreds of people in my life, like we live in Maine, when you drive through Massachusetts, well, they drive crazy down there. If you don't do 80, then you're just going to get run over. We have driven our family van, personal vehicles, a bus hauling a large trailer, like we're 25,000 pounds and 62 feet long, and all of that at the posted speed limit. We've never been in a car accident because of it or caused a car accident because of it. So it might make you feel better to say it's acceptable for me to just do 80 when the speed limit is 65 and everybody around me is doing 80. Is it okay that everybody around you is committing sexual immorality? So, well, it's okay because everybody else around me is doing it. I don't want to, go against the flow or something.
Or telling the jokes that they shouldn't be telling. Or talking bad about your boss or your spouse.
Gossiping.
I think the
Like,
talking bad about
we
your spouse.
struggle with these things because we do encounter situations, not like everybody else does, but even ourselves. We find ourselves like, I didn't even realize I did this. And now how do we deal with it? And like, we have to go confess sin to each other and to our children, because if we taught them to do something wrong, we have to now teach them what is right. And in the process of doing that, you're going to have to confess your own sin. Why are we as a culture, especially a Christian culture in America, where we don't have real religious persecution? Nobody's showing up and executing us. Yeah. No one is saying you're not allowed to preach Jesus on the street corner. That's not happening here. Why in this easy culture do we find it so easy to excuse ourselves? This is me. I'm yelling at myself. Is that okay?
I think it's very easy to get into gossip and, oh, I want to know why that's happening. I want to know. And we have to guard ourselves. There is a point of saying to somebody, watch out for this person. I don't want this person to hurt you in the same way they hurt me. But there's a different thing to be like, well, did you hear?
Right.
You know?
We shouldn't rejoice in people's downfall, people's sin. Like, there have been multiple, like, big name preachers or public figures that have gone down to sin that was exposed in public. We shouldn't rejoice in that. We should actually be, this is what I was just saying to her before we started the video, like, I feel like crying. I'm 50 years old, I'm a man, there's nothing wrong with me. I feel like weepy sometimes because I see sin in my own life and I'm not bothered enough by the sin against God to confront it unless it comes down and affects me, or I see sin around me and we've just kind of accepted it because we know we live in a culture that hates God. We were out on the street yesterday morning giving out gospel tracts and our children were there with us, and seeing sinful behaviors going on near us. Sometimes you just want to go hide from it, but Jesus said that the answer was to go into all the world and make disciples of all nations, to preach the gospel and teach them to obey everything that Jesus commanded us. That's what we're supposed to be doing, so we can't just avoid it. We can't just hide in our houses. I know some people watching this channel may think that we hide in our houses. We don't. We go out in the community. Now we go out together and we confront sin and we deal with it as a family, and we talk to our children about hard things. But in the American church culture, there are many things that we've become much like the world. I guess is the way I'd say it. And that should grieve us. Like, that shouldn't just be me being a sappy old guy. Like, we should be grieved by sin.
I love you, sappy
God
old
is
guy.
grieved by sin. And we should be grieved by our own sin, but also the sin that we see around us.
And in Hebrews, we've been reading Hebrews as a family. That's what we've been studying. And it talks about exhorting each other every day. Yeah. And so I'm not going to see people from my church every day. I'm not even going to talk to my friends.
Or other Christians in the community. We know a lot of Christians in there, right? Yeah.
But are we ready to be exhorted by other people? Like, are we ready to hear a biblical reason of what you did is wrong? You taught your children to sin there. You said we don't need to listen to authorities above us.
This happens in our home. It's usually me getting confronted. Like, we have talked to our children and told them that it is acceptable to say, not to say I don't like what you said or I think you're mean or stuff like that. But if we lie to somebody and our child sees us lie to somebody, they are free to walk up and say, I love you, I respect your authority, but this was wrong. And I just wanted to say this to you because I love you and I don't want you to stay in sin. Like, I'd like to see repentance and reconciliation and know that God is faithful to forgive us and to cleanse us from all unrighteousness if we confess our sin. But if we hide it, that sanctification process is not happening. It's not forgiven when we continue to walk in it, wallow in it, avoid it, excuse it. I don't know.
Okay, I'm pausing for just a second. Okay, but also with that, are we willing to be exhorted? And do we spend enough time around Christians who have biblical wisdom to help lead us on to, like, keep us on the narrow path? Does that make sense?
Because we're honestly sitting here asking ourselves, like, are we courageous enough to call out sin when we see it? Are we willing to know that someone might be upset with us as a family, like as a couple, with our children, with other Christians, or you know, whatever the circumstances, the exhorting one another? We have to be willing to accept the exhortation. We also have to be willing to give the exhortation. Again, not running around judging people, yelling at people all the time. But when we see something that grieves us that we know is biblically sinful, do we love that person enough to say, I don't want you to continue in your sin? Like we said to our children, I want you to love me enough to not let me stay in my sin. And will we open our mouths in grace, in truth, with biblical wisdom to confront sin, hoping for reconciliation? Because that's the purpose, that whole Matthew 18 thing. If someone sins against you, go and tell them his fault. The purpose is reconciliation. You want to bring them back to Christ, see them restored to fellowship, and the people that they've sinned against or we've sinned against, to bring us back together into good fellowship.
So in our church culture, can we help each other normalize exhortation and being willing to say, that person said this, can I take what they said? Either maybe it's a direct, you lied in this thing, you need to apologize. That's one thing. But also okay, I don't really see this situation the same way this person saw it, but they were courageous enough to come out and say, I saw this thing about you. Maybe I need to examine myself, because maybe what they saw wasn't exactly accurate,
Right.
but maybe I was prideful in what I said. Maybe what I said was totally fine, but the way I said it was wrong. You know what I mean? Like, are we willing to self-examine?
Yeah.
But are we also willing to step up and say, no, I think that is wrong, and have those conversations?
So oftentimes people will it's the, everybody used to know John 3:16, for God so loved the world. Most people now know Matthew 7:1, judge not that you be not judged, right? The rest of the passage talks about that. Don't go to your brother and say, you have a speck in your eye, let me make sure I straighten it out. It says, remove the log from your own eye so that you will see clearly to remove the speck that is in your brother's eye. We still confront one another, but we judge ourselves first of all and examine ourselves. Then, in that state of humble submission to the Lord and humility and love for a person, the purpose is going to them to have them see the error of their way so that they be reconciled to God and whoever else is involved in the circumstance.
And the point
That's the purpose.
is, this can all be said in kindness, because I'm also, there's going to be another video either right before this one or right after this one that I'm going to be talking about being kind to each other. And being kind doesn't mean not pointing out sin in another person.
Yeah, it's not sicky, sweet, sappy, blah, blah, blah.
Right. It's looking for, he's playing with a plastic, like the sleeve of vapor. It's making sure that we are saying it in a way of, I want to make this friendship with you and our relationship with Christ better. I want both of those things.
Right. The purpose is building up.
Right, is building up.
down.
And so you can say something in a way that is very much just tearing the other person down and not caring how it sounds. And we're supposed to speak the truth in love. So the truth needs to be told, and I think that's what we're talking about with exhorting one another, but it needs to be said in love too. And if you can't say something nicely, you should examine yourself until you're able to say that thing nicely to the person.
Yeah, we don't just give up because we're not willing to do it properly either. Because then we're refusing to love someone. I don't know.
But there's also the idea of wanting the relationship fixed, not just, I want to continue a relationship where we're yelling back and forth with each other. So anyway, how have you seen exhortation practiced within your church, amongst your friends, within your community of Christians that you're meeting with or spend time with? And are you willing to be exhorted yourself? You don't have to write that down below. It's kind of a rhetorical question, but if you have tips or tricks that you've learned along the way.
Or scriptures to share with us, certainly. That's always helpful.
Yeah, so just thoughts we had today. We'll see you guys next time on Hurting Little Cows to the Glory of God. Bye.